Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 1. So, before I start, this video is for educational use only. Our group is allowing our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as an educational material. Now, the reporters are the following: Mundis, Sanchez, Alboro, Amay, Bayon, Villaver, Dormitorio, Cabus, and Rojero. So, the topic of Group 1 is human trafficking and human rights in migrations. So, the question is, first, what is human trafficking? Second, what are examples of human trafficking? Third, what are the three elements of human trafficking? And fourth, what is the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines? Fifth, how can you relate human trafficking to migration? And lastly, understanding the human rights in migration, the adverse effect of human trafficking to globalization. The objectives are: first, the student will know the human trafficking. Second, the student can give examples of human trafficking. Third, they will know the three elements of human trafficking. Fourth, the student will know the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines. And fifth, the student will answer if human trafficking is related to migration. Sixth, the student will understand the human rights in migration and the adverse effect of human trafficking on globalization.
Human trafficking involves the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of individuals through force, deception, or coercion. Victims are often subjected to conditions of modern-day slavery, facing exploitation for labor, sex, or other forms of exploitation. Traffickers use various tactics including physical violence, threats, manipulation, and debt bondage to control and exploit their victims. It is complex and pervasive crime that occurs across borders, affecting millions of people worldwide. Efforts to combat human trafficking involve awareness, legal measures, and international cooperation. Human trafficking is a crime that involves the exploitation of people through force, fraud, or coercion of various purposes such as forced labor, sexual importation, or involuntary servitude. It's a grave violation of human rights and global issue that affects millions of individuals.
What is human trafficking? Human trafficking is a criminal activity that involves the exploitation of people through force, fraud, or coercions for purposes, force, fraud, or coercions for purposes such as forced labor or commercial sexual exploitation. It's a severe violation of human rights and significant global challenge.
Human trafficking involves the exploitation of individuals through force, fraud, or coercion for various purposes. So, here are examples of human trafficking. So, first is sex trafficking. Victims, often women and children, are coerced or forced into engaging in commercial sex acts against their will. They may be transported across borders or within a country to work in brothels, massage parlors, or other illicit establishments. So, second is forced labor. So, individuals are compelled to work under exploitative conditions, often in industries such as agriculture, constructions, domestic work, or manufacturing. They may work long hours for little or no pay and have their freedom restricted. So next is child trafficking. Children are trafficked for various purposes, including forced labor, sexual exploitation, child soldiers, or illegal adoption. They may be kidnapped, sold, or deceived into these situations. So 4 is bonded labor or debt bondage. Individuals are forced to work to repay a debt, often through exorbitant interest rates or false promises. They become trapped in a cycle of debt, unable to escape exploitative working conditions. Next is number 5, organ trafficking. So victims are coerced or deceived into giving up organs such as kidneys, liver, which are then sold in the black market. This form of trafficking is often associated with the illegal organ trade. So, 6 is forced begging. So, some traffickers force individuals, including children, into begging on the streets. The money collected goes to traffickers, and the victims live in dire conditions. So, 7 is domestic servitude. So, usually women, are trafficked to work as domestic servants. They may be subjected to long hours, physical and emotional abuse, and isolation from the outside world. And 8 is child soldiers. So, children are recruited and forced to serve as soldiers in armed conflicts. They may be subjected to violence, manipulation, and traumatic experience. And 9 is trafficking for forced marriage. So, individuals, often women and girls, may be forced into marriages against their will. This can involve physical and emotional abuse, with the victims having little or no control over their lives. So lastly is exploitation of vulnerable groups. So traffickers often prey on vulnerable populations such as refugees, migrants, or those living in poverty, exploiting their desperation and lack of resources. So it's important to note that human trafficking is a complex that pervasive crime that occurs globally. Efforts to combat it involves awareness, legal frameworks, and international cooperation to identify and prosecute traffickers while providing support and protection to victims.
What is the first element of human trafficking? So, there are three elements of human trafficking. The elements of both definition can be described using a three-element framework focused on traffickers. The first element is the act, second, the means, and third, the purpose. All three elements are essential to form a human trafficking violation. All three elements are essential to constitute the crime of forced labor. First, we tackle the first element, which is the acts or action. The acts element of forced labor is met when the trafficker recruits, harbors, transports, provide, or obtains a person for labor or service. Also, any action or recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt. And for additional actions that constitute sex trafficking but not labor trafficking includes patronizing, soliciting, and advertising an individual is a element of an act.
Number 2, the means. Encompasses the methods used by traffickers to control and manipulate victims. This can include threats, physical force, coercion, deception, abuse of power, or taking advantage of a person's vulnerability.
The third is the purpose, the exploitation, which includes forced labor, sexual exploitation, slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. Thank you.
Today is the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines. So what is the current state of human trafficking in the Philippines? Human trafficking, the world's second largest criminal enterprise after narcotics, is notably severe globally. In the Philippines, a focal point in Asia's Western Pacific region, around 784,000 people endure modern-day slavery, highlighting the urgent need for effective counter-trafficking measures. The Philippines' Tier 1 ranking by the U.S. Department of State recognizes substantial efforts in combating human trafficking, reflecting achievements in prevention, prosecution, and victim protection. Despite progress, The persistent high number of individuals in modern day slavery underscores the challenge, influenced by factors like poverty and the covert nature of trafficking networks. A holistic approach is vital, combining legal measures, law enforcement, and social and economic initiatives. Strengthening victim support, raising awareness, and fostering international cooperation are crucial. While the Tier 1 ranking acknowledged progress, sustained efforts are essential to eliminate human trafficking in the Philippines and protect its people's rights and dignity.
How can you relate human trafficking to migration? Human trafficking and migration are interconnected in several ways. When people migrate, especially in vulnerable situations, they have become target for human traffickers. Here are the few key points that highlight the relationship between human trafficking and migration. First one is vulnerability. Migrants, particularly those who are undocumented or limited legal protection, may face various vulnerabilities such as language barrier, financial debt, and lack of social support. These vulnerabilities make them susceptible to exploitation by human traffickers. Second one is forced migration. In some cases, individuals may be forced to migrate due to conflict, natural disaster, or economic instability. These forced migrants are particularly vulnerable to human trafficking as they have often in desperate situation and lack of proper protection. Third one is smuggling and trafficking. While migration involves the movement of people across borders, human trafficking involves the exploitation of individuals for various purposes such as forced labor, sexual exploitation, or organ trafficking. There can be instances where migrants seeking assistance from smugglers end up being trafficked instead. Fourth one is exploitation in transit. During the migration journey, migrants may face exploitation and abuse, including trafficking. This can happen through deceptive recruitment practice, coercion, or physical and sexual violence. It is important to address the root cause of migration and provide adequate protection and support to vulnerable migrants to prevent human trafficking. Effort should focus on strengthening legal frameworks, raising awareness, and providing
My topic is all about understanding the human rights in migration and the adverse effect of human trafficking to globalization. So for me, human rights in migration refer to ensuring that individuals who move from one place to another are treated with dignity, fairness, and protection. This includes the right to seek asylum, freedom from discriminations, access to basic services, and fair legal processes. So, respecting human rights in migration acknowledges the inherent worth of every person, regardless of their immigration status, and promote a just and compassionate approach to the challenges and opportunities associated with migration. So, when human trafficking negativity impacts globalization in several ways. So, it fosters inequality by exploiting vulnerable individuals, undermines international labor standards, and creates an atmosphere of fear and insecurity. This can hinder global cooperation and make it difficult for countries to work together effectively. Additionally, human trafficking contributes to a tarnished global image as it reflects poorly on nations involved and impedes progress towards a more ethical and interconnected world. Guys, we are the Group 1. Thank you for listening.